We are living in a world today where even an individual or a family earning a six-figure income might actually be in survival mode and might actually be having a hard time affording their life. We've already talked about how there are lots of different people who are earning over six figures a year that are living paycheck to paycheck, but that's not even what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is 1 in 3 people who earn six figures a year now say that they are feeling financially distressed. I mean, it's pretty bad when people who are making over double the US median income are feeling financially strapped right now. And if that group is struggling, imagine how everybody else is getting by who makes less than them. You know, for decades, hitting a six-figure salary meant that you made it in life. Even for me, as I was starting my real estate business and setting some goals and trying to figure out where I wanted to end up, making a six-figure salary was at the top of that list. You know, I was thinking, if I can make $100,000 a year doing this, I'm doing much better than the average person. I didn't have to go to college, didn't have to get a job. I'm working for myself and managing my business and my clients, and that would definitely be a success for me. But fast forward to 2025, 2 out of 3 six-figure earners say that 100K a year is not a sign of wealth anymore. And the reason is simple. It's because earning 100K a year is nowhere near what it used to be. That number represents a completely different reality from just a decade ago. And here's the wild part. The top 10% of earners are holding up over half of the economy right now. People making six figures a year account for 50% of all this consumer spending. So basically, if the wealthy and middle class households stop spending, the economy will completely collapse. And there's already been signs of spending slowing down even at these higher income levels. A lot of people on the higher income spectrum have moved to shopping at places like Walmart and Dollar General, the Dollar Tree, in order to stretch a dollar even further. And they're pulling back on a lot of the big ticket purchases, especially that are non-essential. The only reason there's any restaurant scene or any travel scene or any sort of retail strength right now is due to the top 10% of the economy. And at the same time, it's this group that is quietly falling apart. And for anybody curious, I'm walking down Nautilus Drive today in Miami Beach. This is probably the most troubling data point I've seen on six-figure income earners so far, which is that 75% of six-figure earners used a credit card recently because they ran out of cash, not because they wanted the points or the miles or whatever, because they didn't have the actual money. More than half of them say they needed to double their income in order to feel financially secure. I mean, when is it ever enough, guys? 100K, 200K, 400K, like people can't make that work. And I know for a fact that you can make it work, but a lot of people are very irresponsible with their spending habits and just don't save or invest nearly as much as they should. And then they end up looking around and saying, hey, I'm making 150 grand a year, but I feel broke. But even people in this income group are now turning to buy now, pay later. Some of them are selling personal items. A lot of them are having to cut back on medical care. And some of them are even skipping meals in order to make ends meet. And this is not me saying this. This is people who were surveyed who make this kind of money saying that this is what they're doing right now. Essentially, these folks are in survival mode. And the obvious reason for this is because of inflation. We have had cumulative inflation over the past 5 years, much higher than what we're being told. According to the official numbers, it's like 24%. But the real numbers that people pay are well beyond that, 50 to 70% inflation for people's lifestyles in 5 years. Meanwhile, wages only have gone up 20%. It's not working out. And here's how that maths out. Even when you just use the official 24% inflation rate over the past 5 years, a family earning $100,000 in 2005 would need to earn an equivalent of $170,000 today in 2025 in order to have the same purchasing power. I mean, that's almost double, guys, and that's using just a 24% inflation rate. Imagine what the number really has to be. Like, if you go by what people's inflation numbers really are, you probably need to earn more like 250K a year to be able to keep up with the purchasing power you had 20 years ago. Having a six-figure job now just makes you middle class. A lot of families are having a hard time covering the basics with that income, especially if you live in a big city. And honestly, where you live makes a giant impact on how far that six figures goes. According to some data from LendingTree, they found out that in 25% of the nation's 100 largest metros, a family earning $100,000 a year spends more than they make just on the basic expenses. So if you have a family of three, mom and dad and one kid, they're paying rent or a mortgage, insurance, groceries, gas, childcare, utilities, all that stuff alone adds up to more than their 100K salary, which means they are forced to use debt in order to make up the difference. And in order to make these higher salaries, people are kind of forced to live in these more expensive regions of the country. And the real paradox with all of this is that the economy looks strong on paper. You see stock market still near record highs, real estate prices still near record highs, the GDP numbers keep coming in positive, consumer spending keeps going up. Why is that? Well, we know that 70% of the GDP figures are based on consumer spending, so people have to continue spending more because inflation is higher, so that's kind of a no-brainer. But the stock market is not the real economy. In fact, I made an entire video about this several weeks ago, which you guys seem to really enjoy, that explains this in further detail. So I suggest going to give that video a watch if you never saw it. And that's why consumer confidence is collapsing. The recent reading from the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey fell to 53.6, which is the lowest level in 3 years. And even though Americans say that the economy sucks and they feel terrible, the spending data reflects a different picture. But that's because people have to continue spending out of necessity and out of keeping up with the Joneses. Like, some people just cannot control themselves. They keep doing it even though they know they shouldn't. In fact, economists have a term for this. It's called the income paradox. Consumers are acting differently than what they say, because many of them are actually using debt to maintain the lifestyle they can no longer afford. And it's hard to trade down, guys. Like, that's the reality. If you get used to a certain lifestyle and you get comfortable over the years, the last thing you want to do is trade down because your income can't keep up. And you just think, well, I'll just take on a little extra debt here and there. It's not a big deal. I'll probably get a raise next year and I'll be able to pay it off. But the problem is the cost of living continues to outpace those raises if you even get one at all. I mean, let's face it, the middle class and the lower class have been struggling for decades now. But now the upper middle class is on the downward slide as well. And their debt is exploding across the board. And of course, a lot of people who are already struggling are going to say, well, who cares? Welcome to the club. These people are finally getting a taste of what everybody else is dealing with. And that is true. But at the same time, once they go down, it's going to make things worse for everybody, because you're going to see job losses mount up even further as more companies have to lay people off because the spending's just not there. And it's just going to be a death spiral for the economy and the job market until things can eventually rebound and get back to normal.